Hi everybody, this is the Hideaway Homestead. If you followed along in last week's video, we went foraging for some blackberries and we found a whole bunch of wild raspberries or wineberries and some mullein and some milk thistle as well. So today we're going to be taking part of our wineberry harvest and we're going to be making wineberry jelly, and we're going to be following along a recipe from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. If you're interested in following along with us today, you can check down below in the description for a link to this cookbook. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe. And if you find this video helpful, please like so others can find it. Now let's get started. So last week after we picked our wineberries, we soaked them in a solution of water and salt. It's just a ratio of about 1 cup of water to 1 teaspoon of salt for about 15 minutes, and making sure that the wineberries are covered, and that helps pull out any worms or any bugs or anything that you wouldn't want in your jam or your jelly. And then you can rinse those off and dry them off, and then I actually stuck them in the freezer for a few days. In the cookbook it said that you can actually, with raspberries and strawberries, you can freeze them for at least 24 hours and then thaw them back out and mash them up and then juice them that way versus doing the boiling method or the cook method. So I did that for a few days, thawed them out, and then after they were thawed out, you mash them with like a potato masher in a container, and then you would strain them out. After you mash your berries, you're going to want to strain them. I did not have a jelly bag, so I have a colander here, and then I layered a few layers of cheesecloth that's dampened, and I put the mashed berries in, and the book said to let them strain for at least 2 hours. I went ahead and let mine set overnight. When I checked it in the morning, I was short about 1/4 cup of juice, and it does recommend that if you are a little short, you can add some unsweetened apple juice, or you can actually add about 1/2 cup of boiling water over your berry mash just to get a little bit more juice out, and that is what I did. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for this particular recipe that I'm using, I'm going to be using the raspberry jelly recipe, and that recipe calls for 4 cups of juice, 5.5 cups of sugar, a box or a pack of pectin, and then 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. So this recipe is supposed to make about 6 8-ounce jelly jars or 1/2 pint jars. So I already went ahead and washed all my jars and my lids and my rings by hand, just with some soap and hot water. You can definitely put the jars in the dishwasher as well. And I just made sure that my rings didn't have any rust or corrosion or anything on them. You're also going to need a large, non-reactive, like a stainless steel pot for cooking your jelly. And I have that here, and same goes for your spoons. You want something that you probably don't want it to get stained, as this is a very dark berry. And again, you want it to be non-reactive, and stainless steel is a good choice for that. When we go to fill our jars, it is helpful to have some type of funnel or something when you're putting that in, just to keep it from splashing everywhere. For canning the jelly, you actually do a water bath method, so we will not be using any type of pressure canning today. And you can use a specialized water bath canner. I don't have one. I'm gonna just be using a large stock pot that I have with a lid. I also did not have a trivet or a canning rack, so I went by the book, and there's also things online about doing this, but you can just take some old canning rings and zip tie them together. Actually zip tied mine a little too tight. You want to leave it a little looser, but it'll work fine to keep your jars from touching the very bottom of the pot when they're doing the water bath canning. And then the last thing that is helpful is to have a jar lifter, especially in the water bath canner. We're gonna have the jars completely covered with water, so when it's time to remove those, you really need something to keep your hands out of the hot water. I did have to put an extra jar in the pot just to be a kind of spacer so everything sets evenly. So we wanna pour water in here and just keep everything heated up so that the jars are hot when we go to add our jelly, so that we don't have any cracking or any issues with our canning process. So I'm gonna get this filled up. We've got all of our canning items prepped, so we're gonna go ahead and start making our jelly. And we wanna go ahead and start by adding our 4 cups of juice to our pot. And with wild raspberries, wineberries, you do have to add 4 tablespoons of lemon juice just to help boost up the acidity. And we do need it to be a bit acidic for the pectin to gel. And the book does say to heat it on high heat, so I'm gonna give that a whisk. And while that is heating, we're gonna go ahead and stir in our pectin. So I'm just gonna slowly sprinkle that in and try to make sure it doesn't clump. We're just gonna wanna keep stirring this frequently until it comes to a boil, and then we're gonna be adding our sugar. And now we wait. Dun, 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 dun. So we have our jelly mixture boiling now, and we're gonna go ahead and add our 5½ cups of sugar. When you add the sugar, you do need to add it all at one time, and it will foam up, so just be careful. You want to keep stirring while you're adding the sugar. Bring it back up to a rolling boil for a good minute, and then take it off the burner. And we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we've got it to come back up to a boil after adding our sugar. We're just gonna keep stirring and let it boil for about 1 minute. So at this point, if you have any foam, you wanna quickly skim that off, and we're gonna start filling our jars. So when you start filling your jars, you wanna fill it up until about of a 1/4 inch headspace. And we're just gonna try to get these filled up quickly, but safely. So once I have that filled up, you just wanna wipe your jar with a damp, clean towel and make sure there's nothing on the rim so that your seal is gonna adhere. And these jars are hot from the jelly, so just be very careful. And I've got it where it's not turning anymore, and I just wanna turn it finger tight. And that is sufficient. I'm gonna go put that back in our water. We've got all of our jelly jars back into the pot now, I've covered it with a lid and turned the heat up to high. We want to go ahead and let it come back up to a rolling boil and keep it at a rolling boil for 10 minutes. And after that 10 minutes, we're going to turn the pot off and let it set for about 5 more minutes. And then we can pull those back out of the pot to let them cool. Okay, so our jelly is out of the pot now, and we're just gonna let it set and cool for about 24 hours or overnight. And then in the morning, we can go ahead and take the bands off and just clean up around the edges again and make sure that all of the seals, I heard one ping now, we can make sure all of the seals have done their job and aren't coming off or anything like that. When you check your jars the next day, you do want to make sure also that all of the lids have sealed by making sure that when you push on it, they don't pop. They should already be like indented in, so you can't do that. And I do have some water on top of my lids. I like to wipe them. You're not supposed to, so I'm going to refrain from doing so. And then I did have one jar that I was a little short on, and I went ahead and canned it. That's not safe to keep it like just on the shelf because it's not up to the right headspace. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and store that in the fridge tomorrow, and it'd be fine for us to just eat on that way and keep it in the fridge. But you wouldn't want to put it on your shelf like that. So I'll check back with you tomorrow to see how the jelly's set up. Hey.
Hey. What's up?
Can you try this and tell me what you think?
Sure. It's really good. Is this the wineberries that you made jelly out of?
Yep.
Do I get to keep the whole plate?
Sure.
Yeah, it's really good.